So it has been super long since my last video, and that is okay. So during the month of September, I spent a lot of time reading books that I should have read a long time ago. Okay, so the first book I want to talk about is Homegoing by Xerxe. So I actually read Transcendent Kingdom first. I knew this was her first book, but Transcendent Kingdom kind of like spoke to me, so I saw myself reading that first, and I did, and I loved that book. That book I gave 4 stars. It didn't blow my mind, but the story was amazing, and I connected to it because it had a lot to do with church and the Christian life, and I grew up in church. I grew up Christian, and yeah. And this story begins in Africa, and it talks about these 2 sisters who are separated at birth. Their mother is running from a burning village, and they end up being separated. The difference between this book and most of the other books that I've read these past 2 years is that this book is following the generations that follow behind these 2 sisters that start the book out. It's an absolutely crazy story that kind of like jam-packs the entire slave trade era. So it really shows how villages in Africa already had slavery before there was the American slavery situation going on. And a lot of those chiefs and big men in those villages, they welcomed in the white people. They didn't think it was a situation where they would end up being conquered by these white people. The story pretty much follows the 2 sisters and how they encounter the beginnings of the slave trade and the diaspora. I think what I loved about this book the most is following each person's story, going from the son to the grandson to the great-grandson, the ones that stayed in Africa and kind of like bridged the gap between the white colonizers and the African tribes, and then moving on to America and following their children there as they go through slavery, Jim Crow, and then pretty much it comes full circle all the way back until like present time. And it's just beautiful. Of course, this book has a lot of aspects that are triggering. And, you know, there's slavery, rape, violence, war, villages are burning. It is very triggering. Some of it is very hard to read. But regardless of all the triggers and the craziness that a lot of people dealt with in this book, I think it's amazing how kind of like jam-packed and gave us a summary of this crazy moment in history through the lineage of royalty, but also showing us the individual aspects of people dealing with circumstances of slavery, being traded, but also finding some happiness and independence inside those circumstances. Very powerful book. Awesome. Like, definite 5 stars. I feel like this book has so much in it that I would have to do a standalone video just to talk about how much craziness this book has. How 2 sisters can feel each other and know about each other before they even get much information about the other. Even though they were split apart, their families were still connected in certain ways, and everything, it just, when I say full circle, the book came full circle. 5 stars. 5 stars for sure. I definitely loved this book more than I loved Transcendent Kingdom, but I mean, they're totally different books, totally different genres. Totally different. But Homegoing was amazing. Another book that I finished in September is Baccanca. Crazy thing about this book is that there wasn't much hype about it. A lot of people didn't hear about this book when I mentioned it on the gram. I found it on Amazon, and I was just like, the cover looks amazing. It has like this beautiful black woman with braids, and it has this Ferris wheel, and I looked up Baccanca because, you know, I don't know everything. It is connected to Bacchus, and there is a tradition of festivals that are dedicated to being very promiscuous, giving out your sexuality, and just exploring those erotic things. But this book follows a carnival that is in the South. I believe it starts out in Louisiana. The carnival is pretty much ran by a demon. So the thing with this demon is that she has pretty much tried to conquer all of the good and powerful entities that could possibly like annihilate her and her friends, her demon friends. The last entity that she is searching for is the Orisha goddess Oya. And that already off the bat kind of like had me like, yes, I want to read this. I love reading about magic. I love dark magical things. I love demons. And I also love African lore. I love anything about the Orishas. Give it to me. I want it. So this story follows a young girl from Louisiana named Eliza. She has this power to communicate with animals through some type of telekinetic psychic power that she has, where she can send visuals and images to pretty much any living thing that has a brain and that can like articulate images and visions. I believe this is around the 1930s, so Great Depression in America, most people are poor and just struggling, so her family can't support her and she must leave. So Eliza's staying at this boarding house and she has to work there for her room and board. So one day the fake owner of this carnival, he meets Eliza. She gets into some trouble where she does something with her powers and she kind of like really gets in trouble. I don't want to ruin the book because I think a lot of people should read this. No one has really heard about it and it's good. So she gets into trouble. This guy rescues her and he's like, hey, I have this carnival full of carnies who all have like powers or they have some type of magical thing about them. The carnival is traveling through the American South, and what people aren't noticing is that children are going missing. And it's always the unfortunate children that no one is really watching, no one's paying attention to. It's some poor family that really can't take care of their child. So what they don't know is that the demon is actually luring the children to the carnival and then consuming their souls. Because what do demons do but eat children? I mean, so while the demon is on this rampage of finding children and luring them in, and she's eating their souls and all these different things, Eliza is the only one a part of the carnival that's like, what's going on? Something's dark. There's something dark living in this trailer that no one can enter, and she starts to kind of like investigate, but everyone at the carnival is like, hey, just let it go, leave it alone. Don't go to the trailer, just do your thing. But of course that doesn't happen. A few of the evil carnies that are connected to the demon, they let her know they think that Eliza is actually the entity that the demon is in search for. Somehow they believe that Eliza is connected to Oya. And I'll just leave it at that because the rest of the book kind of like spirals into this craziness. Of course, it is a battle of good and evil. I won't spoil it. It's a really good book and it hasn't gotten a lot of traction from what I understand, and I'm suggesting it. Get into it. It's really dope. So earlier this year, I read Raybearer, and this literally is one of my favorite books, like of all times. I didn't expect this book to literally steal my heart, but it did. And now I'm in love. No, but really, I really loved Raybearer. I gave it 5 stars because it was everything that you really want out of a YA story. It really grabbed every aspect of an adventure and a journey, a coming of age. I loved it. It was amazing. So that being said, I was very excited when I heard that the next book was coming out from this series. Redemptor. Re-mother-demptor. This book did not live up to what the first book was. Now, I will say it is still an amazing story. For Raybearer, I say 5 stars, hands down. For this book, for Redemptor, I would have to say 3.5. And I only say that because I feel as though Tarasai struggled way too much through this book. She struggled with things that I felt like she kind of like dealt with in the first book. It was just weird to me that Tarasai was dealing with so much insecurity, self-doubt, and just questioning every step that she was going to make as a leader after she was tested and tried so much in the other book. And I understand, like, you know, she's very young. In the first book, we're following her from birth all the way until like 15. And now in this book, I believe she's 17, 18, and she's preparing herself to go into the underworld because she has made a deal with the demons there so that no other children will have to be sacrificed to them. She's making the ultimate sacrifice because she is a Raybearer, and she's also half genie. She's really powerful, and it would be the perfect sacrifice, I guess. But she's questioning herself. She's questioning everything about herself. She isolates herself. She gets depressed. She is hallucinating but not hallucinating. A lot of things are going on, and I felt like I wanted her to be a little bit stronger. So, of course, me being me, I wanted to know, why was this book so less effective than the first book? So I went to the author's page and I was reading things. I read some stuff at the back of the book. I read some articles. From what I gather, she was saying that with Raybearer, she had 10 years or more to put this story together, to marinate it, to actually put all aspects of what she wanted into that book. And unfortunately, with Redemptor, she did it, I believe, within 19 months. Most of that book was written and put together during the quarantine of 2020, when most people were dealing with isolation, depression, self-doubt, and questioning themselves and questioning their path, and everything that I feel most people were dealing with in 2020. It came through the author and entered that book, and I don't like that. I'm not happy about that. I do feel that Tarasai deserved a little more strength, a little more passion for leadership, where it didn't take away from who she was, because she learned so much and she gathered so much love in the first book. So it just really it rubbed me the wrong way. But it's still a great story. She still did triumph in many ways. And I believe that if you did love Raybearer, or if you haven't read Raybearer, read that, because it's amazing. But give this one a try. I wouldn't say it's something that you should run to right now, but it was a good book. I gave it a 3.5 because I just felt like Tarasai deserved better. So let's get to the sci-fi. I'm starting to think that sci-fi is actually my favorite genre. I thought that fantasy was, but I mean, sci-fi and fantasy kind of like, they sisters. So I've only been able to read 2 sci-fi books between September and this month, and I'm not happy about that, because I'm actually really in love with sci-fi and I want more, and more. I did a video last year of my first time reading Octavia Butler. I felt really crazy finding out about her for the first time 2 years ago. I felt like, what's wrong with you? Like, what is wrong with you? You watch tons of sci-fi movies, you like sci-fi shows, it's sci-fi, but you don't know about Octavia Butler? What is wrong with you? But now I know. Now I know, and I'm on the right path. So the first book that I read from Octavia Butler was Wild Seed. If ever a book ruined my life, ruined everything that I have held dear to my soul, it is Wild Seed. Wild Seed was just, if you haven't read Wild Seed, just be careful, because it's too much. So I was just like, Octavia Butler kind of fits in that bracket with Toni Morrison. Like, I can't just be like, oh yeah, let me just read a bunch of Toni Morrison books. No, you kind of have to just like, all right, give me some time, because Toni is just, she's a lot. And the same thing with Octavia. You got to be like, okay, I think I'm ready to move back into Octavia. And I did. And I read Parable of the Sower. Woo-wee! I have to say, I've seen so many people review this book, and it's all been spoiler-free reviews. I don't like to watch reviews of stuff that I haven't read. That's dumb. I saw so many reviews of people talking about this book, and I was just like, this book has to be amazing. Every person gave it a 5-star. Like, every person. I was like, what is in this book that everyone likes? I went into it thinking that it was going to be some crazy sci-fi, you know, spaceships and light beam swords and all that. No, it was nothing like that. And I'm glad it wasn't, because it really showed me that Octavia is not your average sci-fi writer. She's not your average fantasy writer. She definitely like excelled above what the genre standards were presumed or are presumed to be. So Parable of the Sower is following Lauren. Lauren lives in the future. Lauren lives in our future. She actually lives in 2024. And in this future, the world is pretty much trash. trash. People are living in gated communities, not like the ones we have now, but more so gated to keep the crazy people out. And almost like 60% of the population, they're on this drug that everyone is calling pyro, where they set things on fire, like houses, people, farms. They just set things on fire because it gives them this crazy, erotic, lustful flow. They love it. So Lauren is living in this community, and her father is the preacher in this community. And unfortunately, Lauren does not believe in Christianity like everyone else in her town. She believes that God is change. God is different from this person in the sky that's like looking down on us and like watching what we do and interjecting when he wants or whatnot. She believes that God is everything, and that would mean that God is change. Reading the book, it would really put a lot of other things into perspective. I'm not going to explain it because you should read the book. And she has this idea of creating a community that follows these beliefs that will become this community called Earthseed. So that's her plan. But she's also a very logical an intuitive person. So she was telling her father, you know, things are getting bad on the outside of the town. We don't usually leave. We're all here protecting each other. What happens if we can't leave town? What happens if someone comes here and like burns the town down? What if they break in? And everyone is kind of like, oh, well, you know, that'll never happen. Of course it does happen. So Lauren was the only person in town that was ready for something like this to happen. She put together a little survival kit, and she got out of there when the shit hit the fan. So pretty much the book is following Lauren and two other people from her town that survived after the chaos hit the fan. They're traveling up the coast, the West Coast, through California, and they're on their way up to, you know, Canada or Alaska. And they meet people along the way. Different things happen. It's a crazy adventure. I think what connected me to the story so much was how much Octavia predicted from when she wrote this book in '93. Like, this book is from the 90s, and she's writing about the 2020s, and she's accurate as fuck. What's really amazing about it is reading where the world is, the issues that they are dealing with, and how close we are to that now. And I think the things that make Octavia Butler so amazing and so profound is that she's predicted so much in many of her books. I think one of the things that was really relatable in this story was when they were talking about water being more expensive than gas, which, yes, you can walk into a store and buy like an Essentia for like $5, but a gallon of gas is like $2. And even in that case, some people feel like that's too much. And it really puts everything into perspective how someone was writing about this in '93. This is 2021, and she's writing about 2024, where, of course, this can happen. This book is absolutely amazing. It's just an amazing beginning of a series. I felt that this is the opening to a series, and I can't wait to read the other books to find out where this community goes from here, because where the book left off, there was opportunity, but there was also risk. And I just can't wait, because Octavia put her foot all up in through this book. Like, it's a good book. So in all of my videos, I usually talk about the book that I am currently reading. And I am currently reading another sci-fi book by another genius author who I fell in love with last year, and that is Miss N.K. Jemisin. And I am reading the 5th season. It is the 5th season. Right now, I am just reaching chapter 6. I am on page 85. And I have to say, 85 pages in, this book has already taken my head off. I am like, are you kidding me? Wow. We are following a few different points of views. I think the main character right now is this lady named Asun. I believe that's her name, Asun. And her son is dead, and she believes that her husband or the boy's father is the killer. The reason that she believes that her husband has killed her son is because they have this secret. They're part of this race of people who have these magic powers that can like cause these immensely destructive earthquakes and control certain elements and like just craziness. And of course, whenever there's someone different in society, all of the normal people hate the people who are different. So they hate Asun and her son and anyone who is like her. They hate them. Either they are using these people for their benefit of protection or whatever these people can offer them, or they're killing them because of fear. We are now following Asun on this journey of finding her husband who has killed her son, but also kidnapped her daughter. Her daughter is gone and he has taken her, so she believes, at this point, because I don't know what's going on. I'm only on chapter 6. So I'm sure everyone else who has read this book and you know the story, you're just like, boy, you don't even know what's going to happen, because it's the beginning and I'm sure all the shit hits the fan. And I can't wait for it because I'm really enjoying it. I am enjoying this story. Most people that have read this book have said that this is a 5-star, and I believe them because I'm already feeling the 5-star vibes. And when I first found out about this trilogy, a lot of people were just like, just read the first book, just read the 5th season. The other ones are just nah. But recently, when I was like, hey, I got the book, I'm hitting up everybody on Bookstagram and I'm like, should I get the other 2 books? Like, I mean, it's N.K. Jemisin. I don't think it could be bad. And everyone was like, boy, read them books. So I'm gonna read the whole series because this book is already speaking to me and I love N.K. So if you told me not to read it, I'm gonna read it. So those are the books that I read between September and October. So really quickly, I wanted to talk about books that are on my TBR list. Books that I plan on reading between now and the end of December, and I wanted to tell you guys about it. 2 of these books are books that I should have read a really long time ago because everyone raves about them. Everyone has read these books if they've heard about these books. I don't know why I wait. I buy a book and I'm like, I gotta read it. And then I buy another one and I read that one before the book that I was supposed to read. And then I'd be like, why didn't I read this? But you know what? I know that y'all do this too. Y'all do this too. We have issues. First book on the list, Legendborn. Why haven't I read this? Why? What's stopping me? What is stopping me from reading this book? I don't know. But I heard it's really good. I heard it's about a melanated girl and it's kind of like the King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table world of magic. I'm going to read it because I've heard that it's 5-star worthy and everyone has read it and I am a loser for not reading it yet. But I will soon be a winner because I'm going to read it. The second book that I was supposed to read a long time ago that everyone has read, everyone has given it a 5-star, would be Children of Blood and Bone. I love this book because of the cover. Like, I mean, the cover is absolutely amazing. Like, you can't deny how beautiful this cover is. I will be reading Children of Blood and Bone probably next month. November. Black Panther. So, I grew up not into comics. I wasn't that kid. I wasn't like, oh, let me go get a comic book. I was outside playing, acting a fool. No. This is a book. Do you see this? This book has 502 pages. There are no pictures in here, so this is not a comic book, but this is Black Panther Tales of Wakanda. It is a groundbreaking anthology from the African diaspora. So there are multiple stories in here and I can't wait to read them because this is a world that I am totally aloof to. This is a world that I know absolutely nothing about, so I can't wait to read this and I am going to read it next month, November. And I can't wait to tell you guys about it because I don't know anyone who has read it and I'm just ready. So the last 2 books on my list. The first one is Xerxe. When I was growing up, I was absolutely obsessed with Greek mythology. Like, Greek mythology was my thing because I love magic. Greek mythology, I just saw it as, okay, it's mythology, it's not real, so we can kind of like play around and imagine and be okay with the crazy things going on in the Greek world. As an adult, I've read absolutely nothing dealing with Greek mythology, and I think it's time to get back into that. And this book is pretty much modern Greek mythology. Someone who is alive today wrote this book and it is intertwined with Greek mythology. I have no idea what the story is about and I'm glad about that. I have watched no reviews. I just knew that it had something to do with Greek mythology and the stories of old. So I just want to get into it. I want to read it, and I will give a review. I have to do more reviews. I know. I have to be consistent. Last, but definitely not least. Is this the right way for L's? So my last book is Harlem Shuffle by Colson Whitehead. I have another book by Colson. I believe it's The Nickel Boys. I have not read that book yet. I often hear that Colson is near or in the same category as Toni Morrison. And Toni, of course, is one of those authors who, like, when she's giving you a book, she's going to hit you in the gut. So I didn't know if I was ready to read The Nickel Boys. I heard that it is a devastatingly painful story, but it is also an amazing read. So at some point I will get to it. I just feel like I have to be ready for it. But because I've heard from the masses how amazing he is, and because I am originally born and raised, I'm from Harlem, I was just like, I have to get this book. Because it's about Harlem and it's Colson Whitehead, I felt like definitely wanted to get into it, definitely wanted to see what he is going to give us in this novel. And I'm excited to read it. I haven't heard anything about it yet because it literally just came out. I think it came out this month. New book, new read. So that is it for now. That's all my book talk. The books that I've read between October and September, and the books that I plan on reading at the end of this month and throughout November. Once again, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time.